Thanks for tuning in to your daily dose of quick real estate updates, local housing trends, and market data, plus tips, tools, and strategies to help you buy, rent, or invest with confidence. You're now getting ready with RealiCare Reports, powered by the innovation team, Cami and Rex. Now go grab your favorite morning breakfast, coffee or tea, and let's enjoy today's episode.
So as of July 2026, national foreclosures they've actually hit a 7-year high.
Yeah, it's a pretty massive spike.
Right. We were looking at a wave of default benchmark rates that we just haven't seen since 2019.
It is definitely a shift.
It is. So welcome to the deep dive. Today we have a very specific mission.
We do.
We are cracking open this brand new, just incredibly detailed July 2026 report from Realtor.com. It's by researcher Snejana Farbaroff.
And it is packed with data.
Oh, totally packed. And our goal here is to figure out exactly why the dam is breaking right now, why this specific moment.
Exactly.
We also want to look at where the biggest risks are geographically and, what this actually means for you if you're in the market to buy or looking to invest or just trying to understand the ground shifting beneath our feet right now.
Yeah, and I think it is so crucial to set the tone for this data right out of the gate because foreclosure is a word that immediately evokes panic.
Oh, for sure. You hear it and you instantly think of the 2008 financial crisis.
Exactly, the 2008 crash. But for you, the well-informed listener, the numbers in this report actually reveal something much more structural.
Right.
We're looking at these really fascinating patterns about our post-pandemic economy, the hidden, delayed costs of climate change, and honestly, some very unique market opportunities, if you know where to look.
Okay, let's unpack this. Because to understand where the real estate market is going, I feel like we first have to understand why this spike is happening right now in the middle of 2026.
Right. The timing is key.
Yeah. So if we rewind to the height of the COVID-19 pandemic, defaults basically plummeted.
They dropped to historic lows, yeah.
Right. Because the government stepped in with the CARES Act. We had these widespread foreclosure moratoriums, and there were, massive mortgage forbearance programs.
Yeah, the intervention was just unprecedented. But it is really important to understand the mechanics of how that safety net actually functioned.
What do you mean?
Well, a lot of people assume that forbearance meant those missed mortgage payments were simply forgiven or subsidized by the government.
Oh, right. Like free money.
Exactly. But that is not what happened at all. Lenders essentially took a pause in collecting, but that debt didn't just vanish into thin air.
It was still there on the ledger.
Yeah. The missed payments were typically tacked onto the back end of the loan or structured into these complex repayment plans.
Right. Okay.
And even after the initial pandemic emergency programs ended, you had Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac introducing payment deferral and loan modification programs. And that extended that grace period well into the recovery phase.
So they were basically just kicking the can down the road.
They were buying time. That's exactly what it was. The hope was that by the time those programs finally expired, homeowners would be back on their feet financially.
Makes sense in theory.
Right. And for a lot of people who bought homes in, say, 2020 or 2021, that strategy actually worked flawlessly, but for a completely different reason.
Oh, because of the crazy equity boom?
Exactly. The massive historic surge in home prices basically bailed them out. Their homes appreciated by 20, sometimes even 30% in a matter of just a couple of years.
Wow.
Yeah, so if they got into financial trouble, they had this instant massive equity. They could refinance, take out a home equity loan, or, worst case scenario, just sell the house at a profit and walk away clean.
Right, but those Fannie and Freddie deferral programs finally ran out in 2024.
Exactly. The runway ended.
So the safety net has been completely removed at this point. And now, the people who are struggling, they don't have that magical equity cushion to fall back on.
No, they don't.
Especially when you consider that the cost of actually just maintaining a home has absolutely skyrocketed over the last 3 years.
It's been brutal.
Yeah, the Realtor.com report highlights how property taxes have been reassessed at those pre-pandemic valuations.
Yeah.
And insurance premiums are just surging everywhere.
Oh, insurance is out of control in some states.
Totally. Plus, everyday inflation is still outpacing wage growth.
Yeah. So when you combine the expiration of those forbearance programs with today's elevated cost of living, you create this delayed reaction foreclosure wave.
Right.
Homeowners are suddenly standing completely exposed. And the Realtor.com senior economist, Joel Berner, He actually isolates one specific group that is taking the absolute brunt of this collision.
Who is it?
The most vulnerable cohort in the housing market today are the people who bought their homes in 2023.
Ah, yeah, I look at it this way. Buying a house in 2023 was kind of like jumping onto a treadmill that was already running at top speed.
That is a great analogy.
Right, because you were paying peak home prices, you were getting hit with mortgage rates nearing, what, 8%?
Almost 8, yeah.
And your monthly payment left absolutely zero breathing room in your budget.
Zero. Because the mechanics of the 2023 mortgage are just incredibly unforgiving.
Walk me through that.
Well, when you originate a 30-year fixed-rate mortgage, the amortization schedule dictates that your first several years of payments are overwhelmingly front-loaded with interest.
Right, you're barely touching the principal.
Exactly. You are barely chipping away at the actual balance of the loan.
Yeah.
Now, in previous eras, natural market appreciation covered that gap for you.
Right, the house just got more valuable anyway.
Yeah. But home prices essentially flattened out in late 2023 and early 2024.
So they are trapped, they don't have the pandemic equity boom to save them, and their massive monthly payments are just evaporating into interest.
Exactly. If a 2023 buyer faces a financial hardship today, say a sudden medical bill, a job transition, or simply the compounding weight of inflation on their grocery bills, they are at high risk of falling underwater.
Wow.
They owe the bank more than the open market says the home is actually worth.
And so they can't even sell it.
Right. They cannot sell the property to clear the debt without bringing tens of thousands of dollars in cash to the closing table, which of course they don't have.
So if you are a 2023 buyer facing that exact equity trap we just talked about, your survival essentially entirely depends on your local economy.
Highly localized, yes.
Which actually brings up this massive paradox in the data regarding where these defaults are happening. When we look at the geography of this foreclosure wave, there was a giant gap between raw volume and actual market vulnerability.
Yeah, the raw volume numbers can be highly misleading if you aren't careful.
Right.
If you look purely at the sheer number of foreclosure listings, the top of the list is dominated by massive metropolitan areas. Places like Chicago, Philadelphia, and Houston, they each have over 570 active foreclosure listings right now.
Right. But in a huge metro area with literally millions of residential rooftops, 570 foreclosures doesn't even register as a blip on the radar for the local housing market.
Exactly. Population size severely distorts the reality there.
Okay.
To understand where the housing market is genuinely fracturing, you have to measure the shares of default listings.
The percentages.
Yes. We need to look at what percentage of the available housing inventory is currently in the foreclosure process. And the moment you apply that metric, the major coastal cities just vanish from the map.
Wow. Where does it go?
The epicenter of the crisis points directly towards smaller, lower-cost markets, overwhelmingly concentrated in the South and the Midwest.
Yeah, the report explicitly labels these edge-of-margin markets, which I thought was super interesting.
The great term for it.
Right. These are regions where home prices are so low that the down payments fall well below the national average. So it is significantly easier for a renter to scrape together the cash to transition into homeownership.
Right.
But wait, so the regions that we constantly celebrate for being, affordable and accessible to first-time buyers, those are actually the most dangerous places to buy a house right now.
Essentially, yes. The affordability itself is the structural weakness.
How so?
It comes down to economic selection bias. When a housing market has an exceptionally low financial barrier to entry, it naturally attracts buyers who are operating on razor-thin financial margins.
Oh, I see.
These are buyers who might just barely meet the debt-to-income requirements for the mortgage. They don't have robust emergency funds, stock portfolios, or family wealth to dip into if the economy turns.
It's like trying to bail water out of a leaky boat. But your bucket keeps getting smaller every single month as inflation eats away at your wages.
Yeah, exactly.
You are living paycheck to paycheck, but you just happen to own a house while doing it.
And when macroeconomic shifts occur, say when the city reassesses property taxes or utility rates jump or just the cost of commuting goes up, these edge-of-margin buyers have zero buffer to absorb the shock.
None at all.
The exact same affordability advantage that allowed them to enter the housing market is the economic fragility that ultimately leads them to foreclosure. I mean, they simply cannot outrun sustained inflation.
Okay, so if edge-of-margin markets are structurally the most vulnerable, what city is sitting at the absolute top of the list? Like, where is ground zero for this wave?
Ground zero is Lake Charles, Louisiana.
Okay.
And the primary catalyst for their foreclosure crisis isn't mortgage rates, and it isn't inflation.
What is it?
It's the weather.
Wow.
We are watching the climate foreclosure pipeline reshape a major regional economy in real time.
Yeah, here's where it gets really interesting. Because Lake Charles is a metro area of about 240,000 people. Right.
Roughly, yeah.
And according to this July 2026 data, foreclosures make up a staggering 10% plus of its total available housing market.
Which is astronomical.
More than 1 in 10 homes for sale is a default. And a local real estate agent quoted in the report, Danette McManus, points directly to the legacy of Hurricanes Laura and Delta.
Yes.
But those storms happened years ago. How is a hurricane from the past causing a foreclosure spike today?
Well, what's fascinating here is that we have to completely redefine what storm damage actually means.
Okay.
It is not just the immediate physical destruction of the roof or the drywall. It is a grueling, multi-year process of financial attrition.
Financial attrition.
Right.
When homeowners in Lake Charles survived those storms, they found themselves trapped in agonizingly slow battles with their insurance companies. Claims often took months or even years to fully settle.
That sounds like a nightmare. And when the payouts finally arrived, they rarely covered the actual cost of the labor and materials needed for the repairs.
Yeah, the report specifically mentions the devastating impact of hurricane deductibles.
Yes, those are huge.
Because, like, if I get a standard leak in my roof, my deductible might be a flat $1,000.
Right.
But in a high-risk hurricane zone, how does that math actually work?
In a coastal region like Lake Charles, policies typically carry a percentage-based hurricane deductible, often around 5% of the home's total insured value.
5%.
Yeah. So if you own a $300,000 house, you are contractually obligated to pay the first $15,000 of the repair costs completely out of pocket before the insurance company issues a single check.
And we just established that edge-of-margin buyers do not have $15,000 sitting in a high-yield savings account.
They don't. So to bridge that gap, families were forced to take out high-interest personal loans, they drained their retirement accounts, or they opened second mortgages just to make their battered homes physically livable again.
So they took on massive debt to just survive the aftermath of the storm.
Exactly. And then the secondary wave hits.
Which is what?
Because they now live in a newly designated extreme disaster zone, their homeowners' insurance premiums skyrocket upon renewal.
Oh, of course.
And their local municipalities often raise property taxes to fund the rebuilding of public infrastructure.
It is basically a slow-motion financial ruin. The hurricane is a sudden, violent event that passes in 24 hours. But the actual foreclosure happens years later, in 2026, because the homeowner slowly bleeds out from the debt they took on to fix the house, combined with the new, completely unlivable carrying costs of the insurance premiums.
That's exactly it. The cascading effect of climate risk permanently alters the fundamental cost of living in the area.
Yeah.
And you can see the stagnation in the local Lake Charles housing data. In June of 2026, active listings in the area were down over 26% year over year.
Meaning people are just giving up.
Pretty much.
Homes were sitting on the market longer, buyer demand is cratered, and because nobody wants to buy into that level of climate and insurance risk, foreclosures are just making up a larger and larger slice of a shrinking pie.
Right. The normal rules of real estate recovery just no longer apply when the underlying environment is actively hostile to the very concept of affordable homeownership.
Which naturally makes you wonder, right? If a market is sitting at over 10% foreclosures, is there an opportunity hidden in the wreckage?
It's the classic question.
Like, if you are listening to this and you've managed to build up some capital, hearing about a massive wave of distressed properties might sound like a chance to buy a house at a deep discount.
Absolutely.
And according to the Realtor.com data, the opportunity is absolutely there, but the risks are astronomical.
Yeah, we really need to define exactly what kind of property we're talking about here. These are REOs.
Real estate owned properties.
Yeah, that actually...
I see that term all the time on listing sites, honestly. How does a house actually get the REO label?
So, when a homeowner defaults and is foreclosed upon, the bank or lender attempts to sell the property at a public foreclosure auction, right? They want to quickly recoup their outstanding loan balance.
Right.
However, if the property fails to attract a high enough bid at the auction, which, by the way, happens quite frequently.
Oh, really?
Yeah, very often. The ownership legally reverts back to the lender, so the bank now owns the house.
Got it. It is real estate owned by the bank.
Exactly. The bank then hires a local real estate agent to list the REO on the open market on sites like Realtor.com to try and liquidate the asset.
And the financial upside on these REO listings is massive. As of April 2026, REOs accounted for about 1.3% of all active listings nationally.
Small percentage, but significant.
Right, but the median REO home sold for an incredible 27.2% less than its estimated market value.
That is a huge discount.
In an economy where first-time buyers are completely priced out, a 27% discount is like a siren song.
And buyers are highly aware of the discount. The data shows REO listings generate 26.5% more page views online than traditional homes. People are looking.
But despite all that online traffic, REO properties actually sit on the market for an average of 11 days longer than a standard listing.
Yep.
Because the 27% discount comes with an ironclad, non-negotiable condition. The homes are sold strictly as is.
As is the two scariest words in real estate.
Totally. Buying an REO is basically like buying an abandoned storage locker, sight unseen on one of those reality shows.
Yes.
You might unlock the door and find a solid structure that just needs some cosmetic updating. Or, you might find a catastrophic money pit.
And it is overwhelmingly the latter, honestly. Yeah. Consider the timeline of the previous owner. If a family was struggling so severely that they could not afford their mortgage payments for months or even years, they certainly were not paying for routine maintenance or preventative repairs.
Well, that's a really good point. If you can't pay the mortgage, you definitely aren't fixing the water heater.
Exactly. And Danette McManus warns that in markets like Louisiana, these homes often sit completely vacant without climate control through brutally humid summers.
Oh, man.
You are walking into severe moisture issues, extensive black mold, burst pipes, and just foundational neglect.
And the bank is not going to credit you a single dollar to fix the roof or remediate the mold.
Zero concessions, which creates an immediate barrier for traditional buyers, which is financing.
Right.
Traditional mortgage lenders and government-backed loan programs have very strict minimum property standards.
Oh, I see.
If an REO lacks a functioning kitchen, has exposed wiring, or has severe structural damage, it will not pass a standard appraisal. A bank will not write a 30-year mortgage for it. Furthermore, insurance companies routinely refuse to underwrite policies on severely distressed properties.
So you think you are scoring a house for 27% below market value, but you actually need like $100,000 in liquid cash to make the house legally habitable and insurable before you can even move in.
Basically, yes.
But as terrifying as the physical damage is, the report outlines a legal trap in certain states that is arguably much worse.
Oh, this is wild.
Yeah, I saw this stat about Alabama, and it mentioned something called a statutory right of redemption. What does that actually mean for a buyer?
It is one of the most hazardous pieces of local real estate legislation in the country for an unwary investor.
Really?
Yeah. So Alabama has 2 cities in the top 5 nationally for default shares. Tuscaloosa is number 2 in the country at 7.7%, and Montgomery is number 5 at 5.7%.
So there's a ton of distressed inventory there.
The distressed inventory is very high, but Alabama law grants the prior foreclosed homeowner a statutory right of redemption.
Okay, what is that?
This means the original owner can legally reclaim their property after the foreclosure sale is final.
Wait. I buy the house, the deed's in my name, and they can just take it back.
Yes. They have a legally defined window, often up to a year depending on the specific circumstances of the foreclosure, where they can step back in, pay the new buyer the original purchase price, plus interest, property taxes, and some allowable insurance charges, and legally compel the new buyer to surrender the property.
That is insane. It is a literal take-backseat clause written right into state law.
Pretty much.
Imagine you buy a distressed REO in Tuscaloosa. You spend 3 months and, say, $40,000 of your own cash, getting the interior, remediating mold, and installing this beautiful new kitchen.
Right.
6 months later, the original owner inherits some money, walks up to your newly painted front door, hands you a check for what you paid at the auction, and legally reclaims the house.
Yes.
You just gave him a free, massive renovation.
Exactly. And Jake Krimmel, a senior economist at Realtor.com, stresses that buying foreclosures in states with aggressive redemption laws is strictly an arena for seasoned professionals.
I would hope so.
Yeah, you are exposing your capital to incredible legal vulnerability if you do not have a dedicated attorney navigating the timelines and, what are considered allowable improvements under those state statutes.
So when you stack up the black mold, the inability to get a traditional mortgage, the soaring insurance premiums, and these wild legal trapdoors in places like Alabama, who's actually clearing these REO properties off the market?
Honestly, this inventory is almost exclusively being absorbed by cash-rich institutional investors, established house flippers, and corporate landlords.
The big players.
Yeah, these entities don't need traditional bank financing. They have in-house contracting teams to execute repairs at wholesale costs, and they have the legal infrastructure to navigate redemption periods easily.
Right.
For an everyday buyer just trying to stretch their budget to find a starter home, the REO market is incredibly hostile.
So what does this all mean for you listening? We started this deep dive looking at this pretty jarring headline about foreclosures hitting a 7-year high. But when you actually unpack the Realtor.com data, it fundamentally changes how you have to look at buying a house in 2026.
It really does.
It proves that real estate is never just about the listing price on the screen. It is about understanding the amortization math of a 7% or 8% mortgage.
Absolutely.
It is about recognizing that a cheap house in a coastal market might ultimately cost you double in hurricane deductibles and bridge loans. And it is about knowing that the legal terrain completely changes the moment you cross state lines.
Yeah, the housing market right now is a fragile ecosystem,
Yeah.
and the edge of margin environments within it are breaking down.
Yeah.
But analyzing this data brings up a much larger systemic implication that it isn't explicitly spelled out in the report, but it is the logical conclusion of everything we've discussed today.
What's the takeaway there?
Well, if the everyday American buyer can no longer survive the financial volatility of these edge of margin markets, I mean, if one severe storm or one bad year of inflation guarantees a foreclosure, then traditional homeownership in these regions is going to slowly vanish. We might be looking at a future where the only entities that can afford to absorb the climate risk, self-insure against the hurricanes, and navigate the distressed inventory are massive corporate landlords and Wall Street hedge funds.
That is a terrifying shift. I mean, we've always viewed the affordable starter home as a foundation of the American dream, right? It's the primary way families build generational wealth.
It has been for decades. But if those specific homes become too structurally and environmentally hazardous for a normal family to hold on to, that wealth-building mechanism breaks.
Yeah.
We have to ask ourselves, what happens to the social fabric of communities in the South and the Midwest when the only entity that can financially afford the weather is a corporate conglomerate renting the American dream back to the people who used to own it?
Wow. Something to heavily weigh the next time you see a listing with a price tag that looks just a little too good to be true. Thanks for joining us on this deep dive. We'll catch you next time.
Well, that wraps up today's episode of RealiCare Reports, where real estate meets real life. For more updates, tools, and insights that will help you buy, rent, or invest with confidence, be sure to follow, subscribe, stay connected, stay informed, and stay ready. Until next time.